Welcome back.
Whoa!
Welcome back to this.
Leave it in. Best intro ever.
Welcome back to This Week in Film. My problem is that I started too high. To This Week in Film. It's the weekly podcast where we get together. We talk about the movies we've seen over the past, I guess it's been 2 weeks again.
It has.
I'm Nick Panunto, joined as always by Midwest Matt Lauer. Matt, how's it going?
It's going great. Oh, I started too high too. It's going great, Nick.
That's great. That's great. I assume.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I just finished watching a movie. I had to finish watching it before we could start the show because I just had to know how it ended. Apollo 13, a movie I've only seen 100 times.
Spoiler alert! It turns out all right.
Yeah. So let's begin the show. Matt, did you see some movies?
Yes. I did.
What are you going to discuss this week?
Well, I am going to discuss Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, although that could probably go by pretty quickly, and a surprise entry that I'll just wait for until we get to the last segment because we've reviewed it before and I'm just itching to see how it screws with my favorite movie list.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I saw quite a few movies. I watched The Incredibles 2, The Goonies, Apollo 13, and a documentary called Mission Control: The Unsung Heroes of Apollo, which is what made me want to watch Apollo 13.
I see.
I guess I'll start with that movie, the Mission Control: Unsung Heroes of Apollo, which was directed by David Fairhead. It's from 2017, and it's basically a documentary about the guys who worked in the Mission Control room at Houston during the Apollo space program. It's told from their point of view, and it's a pretty good documentary. It tells the story of from like Apollo 1 all the way through like Apollo 13, and then a little bit beyond that. And it's a very interesting movie, especially if you're into like the 60s space race stuff, which I love. I love the 60s space race stuff. And then it reminded me that I haven't seen that one that came out last year, Hidden Figures. I think you saw it.
Yeah, good movie.
I haven't seen that, and I still haven't seen First Man, the Ryan Gosling, Neil Armstrong movie. So I'm a little behind on the things that I like. So I'll have to.
And yet you watched Apollo 13.
Yeah, right, yeah. But the things about this Mission Control documentary that I liked are that they don't really sugarcoat a lot of it. There's this one poignant moment where the guys are talking about how hard they had to work, where they were working like 14 to 20 hour days, and how NASA and the space race program down there like literally consumed their lives. And the one guy that they interview, and he says, if I had to go back and do it all over again, and it feels like he's getting set up for like the cliche, of course I would, but he says, I wouldn't do it again. He's like, the cost or the toll on my family was far too high. And then they show this like one picture of him with what I'm assuming is his children, and they all just look miserable. And you're like, oh man, this must have been just terrible. For
I like that idea of getting the real honesty there.
Yeah. They talk to the guy that Ed Harris's character is based on from Apollo 13, the Gene Kranz, who was like a mission control flight director, and he's like He's like a really cool, inspirational dude. Like for instance, like after, if you're unfamiliar, but like the Apollo 1 space program, like Apollo 1, it ended in a total disaster. They were running a test in the ship, and there was a fire broke out in the ship, and the astronauts couldn't get out, and they were basically burned alive inside the ship. On the launch pad, and it was a total disaster. It was a real black eye for NASA. But because of it, they changed the way that they do everything at NASA. Like they changed from like people used to be like afraid to speak up. Like the one guy says that they cut corners. They would, because they're really racing against time to try and beat the Russians to space. Or to the moon, because the Russians beat us to space, and they say that because of what happened in Apollo 1, it really changed the attitude and the culture of NASA from being a let's get it done to let's do it right. And the one guy had a directive that said, what did he say? He made everybody write on like their blackboard or their whiteboard in their conference rooms a phrase that I can't remember right now. It's but it was like, it was basically speak up and do it right, you know, and
did
no, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, you had mentioned how it's kind of like gets into the gritty reality of stuff as far as like the people goes. When it gets into like events like that, does that get pretty like do they really kind of flesh that out for you, like spell out like that event with everybody going through that Apollo 1 failure? It sounds like they talk about how they fix things. Does it get into like what it was like for them to kind of see this ship catching on fire with the people in it?
Not really. What they kind of do is more than anything, it shows the disconnect between, because these are all just engineers working in a room outside of where the astronauts are. It really kind of shows the disconnect between the different departments, where I don't want to say it kind of dehumanizes, but like there's a definite disconnect between like if you heard about an airplane crash, you would be like, oh man, that's terrible, you know, or what can we do about that to make it better? Because like what's the best way to say it? The people that were involved in the mission control didn't have much to do with the disaster that was Apollo 1. It was like a bunch of design flaws and engineering mishaps.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really much that those guys could do, but because of what happened, the people that worked in that room, whenever there was an issue, they were given the opportunity to speak up and bring it to the forefront, rather than keep their mouths shut to move the time along.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like kind of like it works kind of parallel to, you know, how like a lot of war stuff's done now, where it's like, yeah, some guy in some room is deciding to, you know, hey, we should bomb this area or something, but then the people on the ground are the ones doing it, and there's like a divide there between,
yeah, like the disconnect between the guy
what you're doing and where it ends up.
Yeah, the guy ordering the bomb to drop and the guy who pushes the button to drop the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things,
you're like working on one piece of it, but then you're not even really there when it's all coming together and failing or succeeding.
Right. One of the things that the movie kind of points out is like how accurate Apollo 13 is.
I was wondering. Okay.
And it from what I've seen from like a bunch of stuff, like all the stuff that happens in Apollo 13 happened. Like all of like the and this is just, I'm just going to roll right into my Apollo 13 discussion flawlessly. And and so like if you're unaware, Apollo 13 was the 13th mission of the Apollo space program. On Apollo 11, they landed on the moon, as when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. Apollo 12, they landed on the moon again, and everything was fine. Apollo 13, they went to go to the moon again, and on the way there, there was an explosion on the ship. There was a, long story short, there was an explosion that blew up part of the ship. And the movie Apollo 13 is the story of getting the 3 astronauts, Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, and Kevin Bacon, back to Earth. And it is a wonderful story. And while I was watching it this time, I realized that what are you doing?
Sorry, I opened a wrapper. Didn't realize it was quite so audible. I'll mute the rest of this endeavor. Continue your story.
So Tom Hanks and Bill Paxton and Kevin Bacon are trying to get back to Earth, working with Mission Control in Houston, and it tells the story of like everything that went wrong during this mission, and eventually, and spoiler alert, they make it back to Earth, and so the thing that I liked most about watching Apollo 13 for this 100th time is that there's no real antagonist to the movie. Like everyone in the movie, the antagonist of the movie is fate. Is just like, here's another thing that goes wrong. Here's another thing that goes wrong. Now, hey, you, the smartest people in the world, figure out a way to solve this problem. It's just a constant series of opportunities presented to these. What are you eating now?
For crying out loud. Man, I realized my mic was so sensitive. Sorry. Sorry, listeners. Sorry, Nick. If you must know, it was a piece of cheese.
Oh, all right. Cool. American?
Cheddar.
Yeah, all right. Oh, God. I don't even remember what I was saying. But yeah, the antagonist of the movie, like no one in the movie.
Man versus nature and fate.
Yeah, like there's nobody in the movie who's like, I'm gonna get these astronauts, or we're gonna get these astronauts once and for all, or hey, the funding isn't there to save these guys. Why don't we just leave them up there in space anyway? Like it's really a story of humans coming together to solve a much larger problem. And it's exciting, and every time I watch it, it's a thrill ride. Like it's a great movie, and it's such a good movie that anytime I hear that Ron Howard has made a movie, I'm like, ooh, I wonder if it'll be as good as Apollo 13, and they never are. They
never is.
They never are. But yeah, Apollo 13 is a great movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should. It's a great story. It's well acted, well produced, great cinematography, great special effects. It's just all around. Like the movie's almost 25 years old now, and it still looks dynamite. Yeah, and really gets you pumped about the triumph of the human spirit. Like how all these people can come together to solve a much larger problem. It's a real feel good movie.
Well, not to crap all over that, but I didn't really care for it that much. but I didn't think it was bad. I also saw it at the drive-in, so that might have.
Is that the only
part of it?
Is that the only time you've seen it?
Yeah, I've only seen it once.
Oh. You should watch it again. I'd like to see how you feel about it.
I'll check it out, but I think first things first. I think I'll check out that documentary. That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's quite good. It definitely, especially if you're into space race stuff, like it shows you like these people, how they just were like it's great. And there's like a lot of documentary footage that they show, and the thing that was a little confusing about the documentary footage is that they overlay some like sound effects with it, which is a little odd. Like you can tell like this is like newsreel footage that doesn't have any sound, but then they like overlay
some Foley guy in on it.
Yeah, there's like Foley work to it, and you're like, well, this is this takes you out of it a little bit. But overall, I'd say it was pretty good. Pretty good documentary.
Especially when they get it wrong and like one part of the station's smashing into another part, and instead of like crashing noises, you get like that honker honker, like clown nose sound.
Yeah. There's a lot of Bozo the Clown noises that don't really work.
Interesting choices.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely check out those 2 movies.
Sounds good.
That's really all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm willing to give Apollo 13 another chance. I actually kind of have always had that Ron Howard feel since then, like from then. But you know, I like to think that I'm a little bit less of a prick now than I was then. So I probably went into that looking for it to be bad, and just going, it's all right. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I'm just as much of a prick, and we'll come back and I'll say, hey, I checked it out again, and it still was moderately good.
I mean, it's like one of those classic Tom Hanks dad movies where it's like Tom Hanks put in a position where he needs to solve a bunch of problems, and he does. And you're like, all right, this is dad crack.
Well, you know, now that you're talking about the actors, that might be part of it too. Like I don't dislike Tom Hanks. I just always felt like he was kind of overrated. But I don't know if you remember this or not. Back in the day, I hated Kevin Bacon.
Oh, I don't remember that at all. How can anyone hate Kevin Bacon?
That's a good question. I don't know. I have no idea what my problem was with Kevin Bacon. So I'll watch it not at a drive-in and without my Kevin Bacon hatred.
How do you feel about Kevin Bacon today?
You know, honestly, I'm kind of indifferent, but I think he's grown on me a bit because I have such a soft spot in my heart for Tremors. You know, like like if you've been in a place for a while and eventually you go, oh, this place actually somehow has become my home. Kevin Bacon's grown on me in that way, where Tremors has become this thing that's sort of a sentimental attachment. So I think maybe if I go back into it now, I'll be able to go like, hey, Kevin Bacon's on screen. Because that actually is how my response is now. When he pops up, I'm not exactly a fan, but when he pops up, I'll be like, yay, Kevin Bacon's here.
Okay.
So we'll see. And that's the end of that, I guess.
Well, like, I just wanted to put, because I'm looking her up right now. The woman that plays Tom Hanks' wife in Apollo 13 she's an excellent job, too. It's an actress named Kathleen Quinlan. And I was wondering, like, what else has she been in? And not much. She really hasn't been in that much. Well, no, I take that back. She hasn't been in anything high profile, really. Like, she works a lot, looking at her IMDb thing, but like you never really saw her again, but she's excellent.
See, I don't remember anything about his wife, but you know, like you said, it's been 25 years.
Yeah, the stuff they deal with some of the family stuff in Apollo 13, like what's going on with Jim Lovell's family and like the other astronauts' families, and Kevin Bacon doesn't have a family in the movie. He's like the first single astronaut, the first bachelor astronaut, and so, like, they don't even bother, like, going along with his, they don't even check in with his parents or anything like that. It's like, if you're not married, you don't matter.
He's like that guy from Skyscraper, who's like, when The Rock is like, man, if I didn't have my family, I'd be a fucking loser.
Yeah,
guy's like, you like me? He's like, yeah. Loser.
Oh, you know what? I just remembered another movie that I watched this week.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I forgot all about it.
You're going to have a lot to put on your list.
Mission Control made me forget about it till just now. I also watched Mission Impossible Fallout.
Oh.
So I'll talk about that last.
Buckle in, listeners. You got an hour and a half left of this show.
Yeah.
Because we got 20 movies to review. This is the after Thanksgiving special.
Right,
if you felt bloated before, wait till you listen to the rest of this podcast.
So that brings us to you, and since you saw the new Harry Potter Wizard movie, that means you went to the movie theater. Which means I guess it's time for Preview Corner?
Indeed it is.
Which is a fan favorite.
Well, excellent because there were about 1,000 previews before this, and let's see, there was a preview for a movie called, and I saw this movie with one of my best friends. Her name's Heather, and
the Heather that I know?
And she's a huge, no, different Heather.
Oh.
And she and I have lots of Harry Potter conversations with one another. She's a huge Harry Potter fan. She gifted me the audiobooks of Harry Potter.
They call them potheads.
Yeah, she's a real pothead. And she gifted me the British audiobooks of Harry Potter, the whole series. And I gotta say, if you're at all a Harry Potter fan, listen to them. Find them some way or another, because they take the narration in those audiobooks is so good that, like, every sentence, and I think J.K. Rowling's a pretty great storyteller, but not necessarily an amazing, like, writer in terms of, like, sentence structure and, you know, like, kind of the poetic, like, flow of things.
Uh-huh.
But the narration is so perfect that it makes everything sound amazing. So anyway, so we're big potheads, but not in that we smoke pot, just that we like Harry Potter a lot. Anyway, that should edit in there perfect. So anyway, so what was I saying? So we went and saw Fantastic Beasts, and so Preview Corner may involve a little bit of dialogue between the two of us. So first we saw a preview for a movie called Ugly Dolls, and it didn't look particularly good. It just looked like your run-of-the-mill sort of CGI, I don't know, Trolls, emoji movie.
Oh, I saw a trailer for this, like stuff. Like it's like dolls that people don't want, kind of a thing. Toys that people don't want. I don't even
know. I just know it was a lot of pop music. And that's all I got. It didn't look particularly great.
I did see this trailer, and I agree. It didn't look very good at all. It looked very bland.
Yeah. It just looked like, well, that's not interesting at all. But, you know, it had that feel of like, but there are colors, so they'll be able to sell it to kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a preview for a movie that I didn't catch the title of. I had to look it up later. It's called 5 Feet Apart. And so hear me out on this. Don't turn off the podcast halfway through me saying this. It's a movie about 2 kids with cystic fibrosis.
Uh-huh.
And it looked like an absolute piece of shit.
Because you hate kids with cystic fibrosis.
No. No, that's not why. No, it just looked like, you know, like there was just a movie out called The Fault in Our Stars.
Right.
And it looked like just a fucking ripoff of that. And if it's not, then sorry. But
did you ever see that movie?
Makes it. I did not.
I didn't either.
To be honest, I didn't think that looked particularly good either. But I want to be clear here: it's not the subject matter.
You hate people with disabilities.
Shut up. It's not that the subject matter's bad.
Uh-huh.
You know, and it's not that there aren't important messages in these things.
It's that those people don't deserve love. And
that no, it's that they seem to be able to or be happy to take something that is serious and just fucking you know, like take advantage of it.
Uh-huh.
Like, and just go like, here's this shitty lazy writing, but because this is an important thing, you just have to like it
because it's an exploitable
exploitable, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, in the preview, there's just like every line is some stupid cliche, and then there's one point where the girl's like, "Oh yeah, I've been spending my life working on my treatment, but I should be using my treatment so that I can live my life." And I'm like, you know what? There is a message in that, but this is just so trite and shitty that it's kind of insulting. I mean, I don't have cystic fibrosis, but on behalf of people who are actually struggling with things, I'm like, they deserve better than this crap. But I probably sounded like a real asshole in the theater because instead of explaining all that, everyone in the theater is watching this preview about these dying kids. And then it goes silent, and I turn to my friend and go, well, that's a piece of shit. So, I saw a preview for a movie called Sherlock and Holmes, which is Will Ferrell and that guy that's always in movies with Will Ferrell.
John C. Reilly.
Correct. And they are doing kind of exactly what you would expect from the two of them making a Sherlock Holmes movie. It's just like they're both kind of idiots, and my guess is there are a lot of people who are going to love it.
I can't wait to see it. I think it looks quite good. I think the trailer was terrible, but like the two of them in their movies together are a home run almost every time for me.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of people that's the case, where like it just hits their funny bone the right way, and they're gonna love it, and I would probably hate it. Like I watched Step Brothers, and I was like, I don't get it. I'm not enjoying this at all. But I would imagine that, because I mean, most people like it. Most people thought that movie was hilarious, so I'd imagine a lot of people are gonna like this. So
yeah, I like Step Brothers.
There's that. Saw another preview for the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if this movie is going to be good, but I keep getting interested. And this preview was a different preview, a whole different cut. And it seemed like the whole point of the trailer was to say, in just as many words, like, this is weird. And it's working for me because I'm like, cool, it's going to be really weird. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I think it looks really cool.
Well, and the idea of like just doing something that is, I mean, I think they have a lot more room to do this with something that is animated than they would with, live action movie. And I know things have kind of pushed the envelope. There's been like Deadpool, there's been Logan, where they take things in a pretty different direction. But this one just like looks like they're like kind of postmodern. We're going to break all the reality rules. I'm pretty stoked about it. Let's see. So after that, there was a preview for Bumblebee, the new Transformers movie.
Which the only reason I might have hope for that is because Michael Bay isn't involved.
Yeah, it still looks like it's got kind of a similar feel. There was lots of epic music in the preview that's like, and not just like commanding epic music like, like this is huge and things are exploding, but like epic music like, wow, this is a real journey type of thing. Right. It's a little strange when it's a girl buying a car. But I will say that the Transformers actually look right. So they actually show Optimus Prime in the preview. Yeah. And he looks like the way it was drawn instead of this just random hodgepodge of car parts. So I don't actually have hope for the movie, but I do kind of want to watch it just to see what I actually wanted to see since I was a little kid, which is that Optimus Prime real.
Right.
So I don't know. I might end up seeing it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
My son
probably won't.
My son loves Bumblebee, so I'm thinking I might take. Did it say when that movie comes out? Because I don't even know.
I think it's next month.
Oh, really? That's soon. Okay. Yeah, I might take my son to see that. I think they're going
for the Christmas thing.
And the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. Oh, man. Can't wait to see that. Well, you know what? I was going to say, tell me what you think of Bumblebee. But considering we do a podcast together about how we feel about movies, I think there's a good chance you will. Next in Preview Corner, I saw another advertisement for... I forget the name, but it's something Battle Angel.
Oh, Alita Battle Angel?
Alita, there we go. Yeah. And, if you've if listeners recall my previous experiences with previews for this movie, I've been getting more and more excited and curious about it, and then I saw this one, and it does not look good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it kind of like the that one I was just talking about a minute ago with the poor dying kids. There's just tons of cliche lines in this preview. There's one point where I guess the girl's boyfriend, or I'm sure love interest, I'm sure he's her boyfriend by the end of the movie. He's like, "You're the most human person I know," and I was just like, "Oh, I want to throw up." It's just shitty cliche dialogue. And then it also showed a lot of parts to the movie that I hadn't seen before, and it looks like a fair amount of the movie is actually about her fighting in some sort of tournament. So I kind of get the sense that maybe it's got kind of a Hunger Games thing going, where it's like, oh, you're going to watch lots of fighting and action and battling, but then there's going to be some framing story that, you're resisting some sort of larger system, and I don't know. It took the wind out of my sails on this movie.
Is that based on a book series or anything?
I don't know a ton about it. I ran across something online, like on YouTube, the other day that said that it's got a pretty bad production story.
Really?
There have been a lot of delays and stuff. I think it was originally supposed to come out. Yeah. I think it was originally supposed to come out like over a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So who knows about that one? I may not be going to the theater for it after all. And then I saw a preview for, there are actually two more left, but Mortal Engines, the next Peter Jackson movie, which I've seen some other previews for and looked terrible. And this preview included a little clip with Peter Jackson at the beginning talking, which kind of gave me the impression that he thinks it's terrible too, because he looked bored as fuck.
Oh. Like, is he just the director of it or just the producer?
I'm gonna guess director, but I don't know for sure. And he just did not look like he even wanted to be on screen talking about it.
Really? Okay.
If you're not excited about your movie, why should I be?
Right.
And then the preview itself was, it had different clips from the other ones I've seen, but it left me with the same feeling of like, this just doesn't look interesting at all.
Right.
And then there's one actress in it who just is, if whoever's editing these previews, if you have a movie that's, I don't know, probably between 2.5 and 3 hours long, you should be able to cut out some clips where the line delivery doesn't sound awful. So not a great sign there.
Right.
And you'll be excited about this one.
Oh boy. Is it a Coca-Cola commercial?
No, it was a commercial for Aquaman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a Coke commercial, since you want to take a little venture into Coke Corner. But it was the first time that I've seen the preview or the commercial with someone with me. So I was kind of explaining to my friend throughout the commercial, wait, he's going to get angry. It's coming. And then he's like, yeah, so, you do whatever you want. I'm going to keep drinking Coke. So, same idea. People are bitter and very defensive about drinking Diet Coke. I still don't know why. There must be some sort of, I don't know, dark web thing going on against Diet Coke that they're trying to fight in advance in the mainstream world, but we don't yet know what the conflict is.
Right.
So Aquaman. Yeah. It's I'm starting to just find Jason Momoa annoying. So and throughout the preview, it's just each line he had, I was like, yeah, that's kind of annoying.
All I can picture him saying is, well, the lights just flickered in my house. All I can picture him saying is,
it's a weird line.
Is yeah, he says it all.
Game of Thrones?
He says it all the time. Like that classic Game of Thrones scene where the power goes out.
Oh, you translated it from Dothraki.
Right, yeah. That's why it sounds weird. It's like translating something to German and then back to English. But all I can picture him saying is "yeah," like that's from Justice League. That's the only line I can imagine him saying is "yeah." Well, my man.
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of his lines are like. He's like, "Yeah, this is awesome." And like, stop trying to tell me it's awesome.
Yeah,
just be awesome. And like, there's one point in the preview where they need some water and some girl does something cool to suck the sweat off of his body and then put it on the thing. And he's like, "You could have just peed on it." Wink. Right. Like each line has this sort of like, yeah, what I'm saying is so 14-year-old humor that I don't know. Maybe I'm just turning into a grumpy old man, but I got no room for that.
Right.
So, and I noticed that I don't think I've ever actually seen Power Rangers, but
that's a shame.
I doubt it. But there are some villains that show up in Aquaman that I'm pretty sure are actually completely a rip-off design from Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So, go online, since apparently you've seen Power Rangers. Go online and check out the newest preview and see what I'm talking about.
I've seen the latest one that came out like this past weekend, but are you talking about like the Black Manta character? The guy with the bowl on his head?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that like a straight look from the comic? You're a DC guy.
I don't know. I've never read an Aquaman comic, and I don't think he's shown up in much of the things that I have seen, so I wouldn't know. It didn't look familiar to me other than to go, it looks like a Power Ranger villain. But I guess it might not be.
Yeah, well, I read the first 12 issues or so of like the new 52 Aquaman, and it was cool. I was like, this is a cool comic book. I'm into this. And then like there were no more issues that I could acquire. And so I stopped reading it. But I was like, this is a cool comic book. I'm enjoying this. So
that's good.
So hopefully it's kind of based on that a little bit. But I doubt it.
I also, and this is not, this is sort of the silver screen version. Oh, wait, no, the silver screen's the big one, right? Yeah. Little screen, the TV.
Right.
I saw a preview more recently for a movie called Anna and the Apocalypse, which is a zombie musical.
Oh.
And I won't say a lot about it because, it wasn't on the big screen. But it looks interesting.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that was preview
told you there
corner.
Was a lot in preview.
Yeah, that was a big. So your winter tentpole is that Harry Potter movie.
Yeah. So speaking of that.
Well, before we talk about that, did you see the first Fantastic Beasts movie? I'm sure you did.
I did, and I think I might have talked about it on here, but you know what? I might not have. I didn't like it.
Okay, I never saw it. I had no interest in it at all, and I loved the Harry Potter movies.
Well, there's nothing interesting about it. It's I think I did talk about it on here because there are like kind of four main characters, and two are the main characters, and then two are their friends. Like one's one of the main character's sister, and the other one is the main character's friend.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of getting together as a couple. Spoiler alert for that fucking movie. But it's actually the B plot characters that are the most interesting and appealing and just like likable in that movie. And strangely enough, their little romance B plot is the best part of the entire movie. The rest of it just didn't do anything for me. It's kind of all over the place. And this movie is a bit of an improvement from that. I don't want to say it's a big improvement, but like Eddie Redmayne is the main character. This guy, Newt Scamander, who he's kind of like Hagrid. He just loves animals. But he's socially awkward, sort of. In the first movie, it was all over the place. He would like have a hard time making eye contact, but then sometimes he would just be straight up talking to people like he was comfortable as hell. Mm-hmm. In this one, it's a little more tamed down and a little bit more consistent. The characters that were so likable in the first one don't exactly have as much screen time, and I won't spoil stuff there. I just say they're not on screen as much. And the Eddie Redmayne's a little bit better. The main woman character, doesn't get much more to do in this film, so she still kind of could just not be there. The plot's a little bit more consistent in this movie.
Yeah.
It's a little complicated. It can be a little bit difficult to like put the pieces together, like as it's going. Like my friend and I afterwards were kind of going back through it and going like, hey, wait, is this what happened? Is this what happened? As I think anybody who's seen a preview knows, so potential spoiler if you haven't seen a preview, Dumbledore's in this movie, played by Jude Law.
Uh-huh.
And
Dumbledore?
Are you singing that song?
No, it's from the Lego movie. Where Gandalf and Dumbledore are talking to each other. Good movie.
Yeah. That was a good movie. And so I'm not a huge Jude Law fan, but I thought he was fine. So overall, I'd say, because I don't want to spoil a lot here, I'd say that the tone's kind of all over the place, but things are a little less clunky than the first movie. And if you're into this universe and found the first one to be kind of disappointing, this one will probably be more worth your time. But it does, I'll say this much. It feels like the whole movie's kind of leading to a punchline that comes at the end of the movie. And at the end, I was like, oh, cool. Now I'm interested in what happens next. And it's the end. So it's kind of like, well, I wish this had just been the first one and they hadn't bothered with the first one, because spending 2 movies to get you to a point of being interested kind of sucks.
Right.
So, I think that's really all I have to say about it. I don't know, you have any questions about it? Things you're curious about?
Not really. Like, to me, these movies just seem like a cash grab where they're like, we ran out of Harry Potter books. Now we're just going to make Harry Potter prequels.
Yeah.
Like how HBO's making a Game of Thrones prequel right. TV show. And I'm like, well, I'm not really that interested in that.
Yeah.
You're just chasing the money.
I feel the same way, but also had hoped, because I think J.K. Rowling does have, really good ideas. That'll be a big idea that she can flesh out amongst a lot of, sub-stories.
Right.
But, even with Harry Potter, until I read the books, I think I had seen like 4 of the movies and gone, I don't know, this doesn't feel like much. But then eventually they all come together, and kind of in reverse, I can enjoy the first and second and third story. Well, first and second. The third one I thought was actually always pretty good. I can enjoy them more as part of a bigger story.
Right.
And with these movies, I was like, there better be a bigger overarching story to bring this all together. And I think by the end of this movie, I was starting to have that feel like, oh, there's actually maybe some substance here.
They have a plan.
Yeah, but man, 5 hours worth of movie is a long time to get there.
Oh, it's 2.5 hours.
I think they both are.
Oh, wow.
I could be wrong. They might be a little shorter than that, but I don't think so. And it's a lot of filler. Especially the first one. It's a lot of filler. And when it comes to the Fantastic Beasts part of it, they're just shoehorned in there. Like these animals, they'll give them things to do to sort of justify them being there.
Yeah.
But like, they're not a story in and of themselves. It should just have a different title and they can cut them right out. It wouldn't matter.
Right.
Except for kids, kids like to see creatures.
Right.
I'm sure adults do too, but it just doesn't, it's not important.
Sea creatures? Are we talking about Aquaman again? Moving on.
We can move on. I'm done with Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, speaking of hilarious jokes, I wrote a joke at a wedding last week. Friends of ours, Pat and Heather, got married. Congratulations, Pat and Heather. And I wrote a joke, and you get to hear it. Are you prepared?
Yeah.
Hey, Matt.
Hey.
What's that orange fruit that won't get married on a whim?
I don't know. A careful orange?
Nope.
Am I supposed to keep guessing?
Yep.
A peach?
Nope.
A nectarine?
Nope. Well, let me say the question again, but like in its original. That's like the edited version of the joke. I got a lot of feedback on the joke. Let me see if this helps you out. What's that orange fruit that comes from a melon that won't get married on a whim?
I don't know, Nick. What is it?
No, this is great radio. A cantaloupe.
Oh.
Hilarious joke.
Not bad.
Yeah,
Not bad.
It's a great joke. I agree with you. It's a great joke.
Yes. So.
Yeah.
So what? We've got like 9 movies.
9 more movies to go and about 10 minutes to do it in. So I'll go next.
Well, tell you what. Wait, hang on. Actually, there's a pretty easy segue here, and I'll make it quick.
Oh my god, I'm being attacked by a spider.
Oh no!
Don't worry, I took care of it.
Okay. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, it was having gone through all this Harry Potter stuff. It's a little bit difficult to divorce that from the rest of the movies and stuff, and the stories in book or audiobook form.
Uh-huh.
As its own movie, it's flawed but charming.
Mm-hmm.
The child acting's pretty bad. The adult acting's great. The story's kind of here and there. There's some stuff thrown in there for just the hell of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it holds together decently, especially with the rest of the story. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So we'll find out where that goes in my list of favorites and least favorites in a little bit. Yeah,
I have a tough time. Like I've wanted to go back and watch like the Harry Potter movies again. And at this point, I think I'm just going to wait till my kids are a little older and then watch them, read the books with them and watch them. But like those first 2 movies that are directed by Christopher Columbus, is that right?
Christopher Columbus.
Guy really gets around, discovered the New World and directed Harry Potter. Hilarious joke. And like going back to watch those, it almost feels like a pain to have to go back and sit through the first couple movies. Because the first couple movies is when you could tell they're trying to cram as much of the books into the movies. And then is it around the third one where they just start chopping up the books where they're like a lot of stuff that's in the books doesn't make it to the movies?
Well, the books become a lot more expansive, so they're actually editing it down rather than just going, hey, why don't we keep everything in, even if it's not really connected to the plot.
Yeah.
Which is weird, man, because I didn't even realize it till this week, but that first movie, that's almost 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, I remember it being really long, yeah.
And there's a lot they could cut out.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. All right, so then that brings me to my next movie, which was The Goonies, which is from 1985, directed by Richard Donner. What more is there to say about The Goonies other than it's terrific? I watched it with my son, who just turned 6, and he loved it. He thought it was great, which was a lot of fun for me. There's like some scary parts in it, and he was like, "Oh, this is scary," and I'm like, "It's okay to be scared. Let's watch the movie." And he made it through the whole thing, and he thought it was a lot of fun. It made him want to make like a treasure map and like all this stuff. Like it was exactly the experience that I wanted him to have watching it. Now the one thing that I forgot about the Goonies is that they swear a lot in that movie. Like the kids like say shit and bullshit left and right. And you're like, every time they say it, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, and we actually touched on the Goonies once before, I think in our episode about Life Force. And you and I and Scott all talked about it. But you hadn't had Alex with you. And it sounds like it's a ton more fun.
It was a lot
Although
of fun to watch.
I think even then you were still loving on it. I think Scott was saying it was he found the kids kind of annoying as an adult.
Oh, they are totally annoying as an adult, but like when you watch it, you kind of watch it as a kid again, where you're like, this is awesome. Also, it's cool to see Josh Brolin as a young guy, and to see where his career has really taken off in the last couple of years. And also Sean Astin, who's Mikey in it. I really can't stand him as an actor. I think he's really full of himself. After we finished watching the Goonies, this is like a longer story, but like a few weeks ago, I was talking to my son about the Lord of the Rings books, and I like hyped it up like crazy for him. I'm like, there's these elves and they live in the woods, and there's dwarves and hobbits and wizards and magic and volcanoes and magic rings. And he's like, wow, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, it does, doesn't it? It sounds great. And I'm like, well, I'll go get the book from downstairs. So I went downstairs to get the big Lord of the Rings book, and I bring it upstairs, and I sit down next to him, and we're going to read it. And he goes, where are the pictures, Daddy? And I go, oh, there are no pictures in this book. There's just maps. And he goes, there's no pictures. Well, then that's not a book, Daddy. And I'm like, it's okay. It's just go with it. Like, use your imagination. And I read like the first paragraph, and he's like, I don't want to listen to this anymore.
Well,
yeah.
I don't imagine that Lord of the Rings really is like 6-year-old level
yeah,
storytelling.
It's a little beyond him at this point. Like I got some advice from people I work with, like maybe start with The Hobbit if you're desperate to get him into Tolkien a little bit. But
well, how about this? Maybe start with some toys, and like act it out for him.
Well, you know what?
A little tree for Treebeard.
Well, you know what I did?
You can put him to sleep if you need to, because he talks real slowly.
What I did was I put on the first Fellowship of the Ring movie, and we watched like the first half hour of that, and he was into it.
That doesn't really.
Yeah, he was into it. He was getting a little scared because we got to the part where Frodo and Merry and Pippin all meet up. Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin meet up, and then like the ring wraith is like sniffing the air around them.
Yeah. Shows up at like a Buckleberry Ferry, right?
Yeah. And that started freaking my son out. He was like, I don't like this anymore. And I'm like, well, you're in luck. It's time to eat dinner. So we haven't gotten back to it. But up until that part, he was pretty into it. So I was like, all right.
Yeah.
But we didn't finish the movie.
There's a lot of cute imagery and stuff.
Yeah, like
with the little hobbits having their parties and stuff.
Yeah, the beginning of the movie is real kid friendly. But anyway, back to the Goonies. I don't have anything else to add other than Christopher Columbus, who we were just talking about, has a screenwriting credit for it.
Great.
Yep. The end.
All right. Goonies has my thumbs up too. Although if you never saw it as a kid, it probably is just annoying.
Yeah, if you try to watch it for the first time as an adult, it's got to be obnoxious. Incredibles 2, I watched.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I liked it. I thought it was okay. I think the first Incredibles movie is better. This one I thought was basically the exact same movie, just with the roles reversed. And they spend a lot of time on the kid Jack being weird. But overall, I mean, it's fine. My son liked it. He liked it a lot. My daughter liked it. It was fine. Like, I don't really have anything negative to say about it. That's it.
Yeah.
The end.
Agreed. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, it's not as good as the first one, but few things are. It's still better than any Fantastic Four movie. The only thing that
that's true.
The only thing that I think is a little disappointing about it is that the main bad guy from the end of the first movie and the beginning of the second one, the Underminer, they never catch him. Like, he's still on the loose.
Well, if they decide they want to make more money and do a third one, then they still have someone available to do it with.
Yeah. And then what was your other movie?
Oh, are we done now?
No, I have one more. Do you have one more?
My last one is just really for the list.
Okay, then I'll go ahead with Mission Impossible 6, Mission Impossible Fallout. This movie was kick ass. It was great. The story doesn't make a lick of sense. I don't understand what's going on. I don't remember the last one. I don't really remember the last one very much, but this movie was awesome. Like, what a fun action movie. And
so it's like fun for your eyeballs.
Yeah. And like you're like the story doesn't matter if it doesn't make any sense. Like people pop up and it's just like all the other Mission Impossible movies. The action sequences are really good. And you know how Tom Cruise does his own stunts and stuff? Yeah. Like knowing that while watching the movie really adds this level of excitement to the experience where you're like I've seen the making. There's like this one motorcycle accident scene where he gets like knocked off a bike. And that was like a real stunt that he did. And like watching it happen.
That's funny because I saw that in the preview and it looked CGI.
It does look CGI, but like I watched him do it. And it and you're like, wow, like that's amazing that he actually did that. And like it really adds this level of realism to the movie that like most action movies today, like for instance, like we were talking about Skyscraper again, like in the movie Skyscraper, it never feels like they're in a building that's on fire. Like all the fire is added in later. Whereas in this movie, when he's like riding around on a motorcycle, like you really feel like he's driving around a motorcycle in Paris, and like the action feels very real. It feels like like one of the first or second Bourne Identity movies where everything is real visceral, everything feels exciting, kinetic. Yeah, great word. And it's just a lot of fun to watch. Like what a great action movie. Like it's not the smartest movie, it's not going to win any awards, but like it's the kind of movie that I wish I had seen in the theater.
Huh. Okay.
Totally worth checking out. Mission Impossible Fallout. And the fact that Henry Cavill had to have a mustache in this movie, like, did you hear about that whole thing? Like,
yeah, they had to CGI his mustache away in Justice League reshoots.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense why he needed to have a mustache for this movie, but I'm so glad that he did. The facial hair in this movie is so ridiculous. Like there's so many crazy mustaches and beards on people. Like it's like it's like you went to a fancy coffee shop and just hired everyone in there with the beard or mustache and said, "All right, you guys are in the movie."
Mission Impossible done by hipsters.
Right, yeah, it's hipster Fallout.
Hipster Impossible.
Yeah. But a totally cool movie. It was a lot of fun to watch. And Henry, right, and cool. It's like one of the first movies where I really liked Henry Cavill. I thought he was great in it.
He hasn't really, I don't think, impressed too many people with his acting.
Yeah. I think he looks good as a Superman, but he hasn't had a good script. And like this makes me think, well, if he had a good script, he'd be a really great Superman. But
yeah, it's kind of a waste and a shame how aside from Wonder Woman, how much the last, I don't know, 10 years now, not 8 years of DC stuff has just been just one big blown opportunity.
Yeah, Zack Snyder garbage. That's the only reason that I have any hope for this Aquaman movie is that it's got nothing to do with Zack Snyder again, other than the casting of Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Like I'm hoping for another like Wonder Woman experience where you go in expecting nothing and you come out okay with it. You're like, oh, that was okay. Because have you seen Wonder Woman again? Like, have you seen it twice yet?
I've seen Wonder Woman 2 2/3 times.
Not as good the second time, but still a decent movie.
I all 3 times enjoyed the first 2/3 of the movie immensely.
Uh-huh.
And I will happily sit down and watch the first 2/3 of the movie again.
Yeah.
But like when I saw it the third time, it was also in the theater. And I was getting to that third act and I was like, I think I'd rather be doing something else right now. And I just walked out.
Yeah.
I was just like, all right, I'm gonna go do something else. And I love the movie. I think it's got great charm. It's super enjoyable. I just don't want to watch any of that interaction with her and the bad guy at the end. It just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. The first 2 acts are great.
Yeah.
So then that brings us to your final movie on our movie-thon.
Yeah. So my final movie, it's a great movie put together by some independent thinkers and without a ton of money. It's called House Shark. And I can't wait to place it on my list.
You watched House Shark again?
I did, and I watched it at a party.
Okay.
My girlfriend had some people over, and we had seen it together at Gen Con, and so she wanted to show it to her friends. And I gotta say, man, that group of folks loved it.
Oh yeah.
They weren't watching the whole time.
Right.
They did other things too. Like they would kind of come in and out. But I must have heard people say something along the lines of "This movie's fantastic," or "I fucking love this movie," at least 7 or 8 times.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, and some like real everyone in the room laughing stuff. So if you've got a party going on, and it's people who, you're not sitting down to watch some sort of like horror movie you've all been waiting for or anything like that. You're looking for fun. This seems to be a great movie to have some laughs with. So, House Shark. There you go.
All right. Yeah. I thought House Shark had its moments. I wasn't really a super fan like you are, but we talked about that movie not too long ago. So if you're interested in a full review of it, check out the archives of episodes.
Yeah.
All right. So then that brings us to our super hot new segment, The Great List. Matt, where would you put the movies you watched this week?
If I'm remembering my list from before correctly,
so you started out today with so on your list right now, number 1 is As Above, So Below, and at the bottom is Contagion. What was the first movie you talked about today? I've already forgotten.
That was Fantastic Beasts 2.
Right.
The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Now, what movie is that better than?
That movie is better than Contagion.
Really? Okay. I'm going to write that.
Yep.
I'm going to lock it in. Fantastic Beast 2. This is your number 2 movie. All right. And then what did you watch? You talked about Sorcerers.
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where's that one sit for you?
That one's going to sit under As Above, So Below. So number 2 slot.
Okay. Harry Potter Sorcerer. How do you spell sorcerer?
Sorcerer.
Sorcerer. Oh, there it is. Sorcerer's Stone. Okay.
Yes.
And then you talked about House Shark.
Yeah.
And where does that go for you?
This is a tough one. Because I will say, okay, so about the Fantastic Beasts thing, I never want to watch the first one again. I think I do want to watch the second one again. So this is tough because things don't always weigh out equally. Sometimes it's like, well, I like this movie more for rewatchability. Sometimes it's just really good quality. Like, for instance, Schindler's List. Right. I never want to see that again.
Right.
But it could go fairly high in a list because it's a quality movie.
Sure.
Now, in this case, House Shark, it's all about the fun enjoyment, almost like it's a game.
Right.
And so I don't quite know. Because Fantastic Beasts I want to watch again because I think it's going to fit into something.
Right.
I am going to have to put House Shark. Can I do ties?
No, it has to go above or below a movie, yeah.
Fine. House Shark will go below Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, okay. So just
but
better
above
than
Contagion.
House Shark. All right.
Yeah.
So as above, so below, still the greatest movie of all time to you.
Yes.
All right. Exciting. All right. Now we're going to go to my list. Let's see. What did I talk about today? I talked about Incredibles. I talked about Mission Control. And that was a pretty good documentary, but I think Peter Rabbit was better than it. So it's going to go at the bottom. Mission Control. And then I talked about Apollo 13, which I got to put at the top of the list. Apollo 13 goes above Avengers Infinity War. And then I talked about the Goonies. Where does Goonies go? Oh, God. This is hard. I'm going to put Goonies below Apollo 13, but above Infinity War. Goonies. Then I talked about Incredibles 2. And I think Incredibles 2 was not as good as Mission Control. So that goes at the bottom. Incredibles 2. And then finally I watched Mission Impossible Fallout. And that movie I'm going to put below Iron Man 3. So at like number... I wish this list would like automatically number things for you as you made changes, but it doesn't. So under Iron Man 3, Mission Impossible Fallout. All right. Okay. So if you're interested in seeing what the list is, I'm gonna post a picture of it on the Instagram, and I think it will also post to the Facebook if you wanted to see it there. So check us out on Instagram or Facebook and Twitter if you want to take a look at our new updated list. My list is a lot longer than Matt's because I saw a ton of more movies. But it's just up to us. It's our own personal list, and once it's locked in stone, it can never be changed. So I guess that's gonna wrap up the show. Matt, anything to plug?
Let's see here. No. Well, actually, you know what? There's one thing. It's a product.
Diet Coke.
No, fuck Diet Coke. You're not allowed to have any Diet Coke. No, it's my girlfriend just gave me some gloves from Costco, I think, because that's where she buys pretty much everything. And they're from a company called Head, which, I don't know, I guess that's kind of suggestive. But anyway, they're warm, but they're also, if you're not into gloves that are big and clunky, and also can allow you to like interact with your phone. Get yourself, if you go to Costco and you see Head gloves, go ahead and grab yourself a pair.
Head gloves, all right.
They're really good.
Get some of that Head glove money. All right. I don't have anything to plug. Hopefully we'll be able to put some episodes out on a more consistent basis since the holidays are kind of lightening up for a few weeks.
And be prepared for the end of December where there's going to be a episode where Nick and I are actually in the same room.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. An in-person episode. But we're still going to do it over the phone so that we can keep the audio quality. All right, so if that's the end of the reel, we'll see you next week in film.
See you then.